This is the Can't Wait podcast, our Jets pod here at The Athletic. I'm Tim McMaster. He's Connor Hughes, Marissa Morris here as well, our producer. Thanks for joining us on YouTube if you're tuning in live or checking us out on The Athletic or wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever it's at. Definitely subscribe and rate the show as well. And you can save 40% off a subscription to The Athletic. Go to theathletic.com/can't wait. Connor, we have a lot to get to here. Jamal Adams contract issues. This is kind of blowing up and becoming a big deal before we thought it would. Joe Flacco joins the team as a backup for Sam Darnold. Before we get to all that, though, Memorial Day weekend gave us some real sports. If you're race car fans out there, there was NASCAR. But for you and me, I think the bigger thrill was watching quarterbacks try to play golf at the match. It was great. Peyton Manning teaming up with Tiger Woods and Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. Good times in the rain.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a great weekend for the DraftKings account. I don't think that one benefited too much. I thought Brady was going to be a little bit better than that, but that wasn't ideal. Man, that was fun. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It was like, because when you watch, because they had the tournament on with like Rory and Fowler and Wolf and Johnson the week before, and I remember watching that one, and you kind of lose an appreciation, or not lose an appreciation, but you kind of just, it runs raw almost how good these guys are. And like, you'd remember, because you'd have like, they're all four professionals, like they're all four pros, and they would hit a shot off the green by like 10 or 15 yards. And you'd look at it and be like, okay, well, they're not going to birdie this hole, but they are going to par it, because now who's ever up, if it's Fowler or Johnson, whatever, they're going to chip it within like 2 feet, and then they're going to putt it in for a gimme. Like that's what's about to happen. Like, okay, this is, the other guy doesn't have a birdie shot. They're both going to par this hole. We'll move on to the next one. When you got a chance to watch the match, and you had Tiger and Phil, who are obviously two of the best to ever do it, but then you have two kind of normal people playing. The coolest thing was being like, seeing a shot that was 10 yards off the green and being like, I have no idea if this is going to be a par, a bogey, a double. Like, I remember I was watching with my father-in-law, and I lost my mind when Brady came up for a chip, and he chunked it like 5 yards in front of him. Like, he came out, it's like an easy chip, like 10 yards. And you just see the ball go up and then down, and a huge divot come out. And they're like, man, I've done that like 300 times. So it was so much more relatable to watch these guys go out there and play golf. And for me, I thought it was so much more fun. Like, I mean, seeing a shot tracer of Tom Brady take a tee shot and have it just slice 70 yards to the right, and then have Woods make the comment about, oh, I think that one's on the fairway on 7. It's like that's the kind of like jabbering that you have when you go out there and just play with your friends. And I thought it was the most relatable professional golf I've ever seen. I thought it was probably some of the most entertaining golf I've ever seen. And I would have just loved if it was a little bit better weather to see these guys like out there, not having to deal with the rain, but to have like, you know, a nice sunny day on a cool course. But I would be really interested to see that like moving forward, like to keep every year this time in the off season, have Phil and Tiger, who clearly are game to do this. I mean, this is the second time they've done it, so they're clearly all about it and they like the idea. And I'm sure,
and they're tied 1-1 now, so there's definitely going to be a third.
Yeah, and they do. This one was for charity, but I think the last one, or maybe they both were for charity, I don't know. But I'm sure it's good advertising money. It's good exposure if they need any more of that. But to have them do that now with other people, like, I love the Manning Brady thing, but it would have been cool. I don't know if LeBron James golfs, but to have like a Jordan LeBron with Tiger and Phil, or like somebody threw out there Steph Curry, because I know Steph Curry does a ton of golfing, having him go up against Jordan or something else. I think that's just, it's so much fun. And I think, again, like the coolest thing for me was watching them screw up and seeing them screw up on shots that, like, yeah, it's what all of us screw up on, but these pros, just for them, it's automatic. And then even to have like Brady hole it out, like on that crazy thing for like crazy shot for a birdie where he was like in the rough, punched it out, just a way, like basically a prayer shot that he throws and somehow goes in the hole. We've all had those too, where it's like, that makes no sense. I'm definitely not that good, but I'm going to take it because it just made me look awesome. Like, it was without a doubt like the coolest golf tournament I've watched, to just sit back, have fun, throw a couple bucks on like what the results of different holes are going to be, and just enjoy a weekend. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. And Brady got $100,000 on that one for that shot, even though he struggled throughout. It was very clear that Peyton Manning is retired from playing football and Tom Brady isn't. Peyton Manning is a really good golfer. That's what I took out of this. And Brady's got some work to do.
He's got to take out the damn driver too, man.
Yeah,
like that
he
pissed
used
me
the
off.
Yeah, he used the fairway wood way too much.
Every time. It was like, even on like, what made me annoyed is like the first hole he goes out there, which by the way, this also pissed me off, is because I was doing the prop bets too. So I had Brady to hit the fairway on the first hole, was one of the props I took, because it was like plus 150 or something like that. I was like, oh, you know, that's a chance at least get the day started well. They all walk up on the tee box. Phil's got driver, Tiger's got driver, Manning's got driver, and Brady comes out with an iron. And I'm like, oh, this is the easiest. I didn't bet enough. I should have put Bree, our wedding fund on this thing. We're going to get married wherever the hell Bree wants. Like, he's got an iron on his hand on the first hole. I mean, he can chunk the thing and it'll still be on the fairway. Just get it out there 120 yards. And all of a sudden he goes up there with his iron and he slices it like crazy. I think he might've hooked it. He was the one I think was in the woods. And I was like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. It's going to be a long day. But to see him even on strokes where they were giving, like holes where they were given strokes, he still got out with the fairway wood. I think he had a hybrid. Then he had the irons. I was like, man, where's the driver? And actually on the broadcast, it might've been JT or one of the guys who was just doing the play-by-play. Somebody made a comment that Brady didn't even have a driver in his bag or something like that. I was like, man, come on. Like, you can't not have a driver in your bag. Everyone has to swing the driver at least once. That's the rule. You have to swing the driver at least once. And after your third time swinging the driver and it doesn't find the fairway or even like the rough or anything, like, then you can put it away and start playing safe. But you got to bring the big dog out at least a little bit. And to see Brady play it so safe and suck so much while playing it so safe, just like, it irked me. And again, it's probably because I thought they were going to win, so I had a little skin in the game. But that was just, it was brutal.
It went down to the 18th before Tiger won. They were up 3 through most of the day, and then Phil and Tom made a run on the back 9. One other thing that was cool to me, beyond them playing badly and the trash talking and just the money on the line, that was all cool. But yeah, Phil actually giving Tom kind of lessons along the way and just little tips and just the way he approaches things you don't hear during a regular tournament about how he's going to approach this shot. There was one hole where he was off the green, and he explained with the way the grass was leaning on a wet day like that, and the way the greens were rolling, he said, I'm going to hit it to this spot. And he walked up and he pointed to the spot and he said, it's going to get a little skid on there. It's going to stop it a little bit. So it hits the green, it'll roll to the hole. Then he backs up and he does exactly what he explained, and he puts it like 6 inches from the cup. I was just like, I mean, this guy's, and they're all that good. Pro golfers are amazing, but just to be able to talk about it, like I would say, I'm going to hit it there, and I would hit it, backwards, whatever.
That's actually a phenomenal point. Cause like, it's one thing to see these guys like hit it far. Like, you can see a guy hit it like 350, or like when Matt Wolf had won the long drive on the tournament last week, and he hit it something like 350, 360 yards. And you're like, man, that's like a far drive. Like, my best in the world go like 280. Like, I can get him out there. If I really hit it right and there's a nice little gust at my back, I can get out there like 280-ish. And these guys are hitting them 350. But again, like like you said, the most amazing thing, it was listening to the dialogue of the Tiger was a little quieter. Like, you could tell Tiger was like locked in, like, I want to beat this guy's ass. But Phil was like actually explaining, like, okay, this is what you want to do. You want to hit it here. Like, with him reading the green and how he was reading the green was just like, I'm up there. I was watching it with my father-in-law, and I looked at him. I was like, man, this puts my putt and pray method to like sleep. Like, I mean, I can read, like, I think it's going to go left to right. He's like, no, it's actually going to go right here, then left, then go down, then slow down a little bit, but then pick up speed. It was amazing. Like, it's just, it adds, if you've never watched golf before, like, or have never played golf before, like Bree was with me and she was watching it. You don't really have too much of an appreciation if you haven't played. When you've played and then you see these guys, you kind of gain even more. When you then hear these guys talk about what they're going to do and how they're approaching shots, it's just, it's so different than what any one of us plays or even your best friends play like, because it's ridiculous. It was fascinating to watch too. Really fascinating.
Twitter became a big part of it. Lots of different pro athletes weighing in, and Eli Manning, I believe, joined Twitter just for this tournament. I can't believe it was some sort of coincidence, but he had all sorts of sponsored tweets going out, and I give him credit. I don't know who's running his Twitter account. I don't know. I just feel like it's not Eli because it's just too funny and too good.
He's good
it would
with
actually
that,
be Eli. Yeah, he is. The dry humor, but him playing off of things was good. And that brings us to, before we get to Jamal Adams, one more thing, which was Lindsey Jones and Andre Fernandez put out their list of best Twitter accounts to follow. on The Athletic. They actually put it out there before I think Eli joined, and they had to kind of
Eli
add an
wanted a
addendum for Eli.
Yeah.
But Nick Mangold makes it for the Jets. Connor, do
Yeah.
you follow Nick Mangold?
I do, yeah, and it's kind of tough. Like, I remember when Lindsay reached out to me, she goes, "Who's the best Jets follow?" I was like, I don't know if they really have one. Like, they don't have like that crazy personality. Like, there's a couple guys right now that I actually think have the potential to do it. Like, Mekhi Becton is like Twitter crazy. Like, that guy's like tweeting everyone, starting challenges. He like wants George Font on the basketball court. He's somebody that if he actually turns out to be pretty good at football, which the Jets hope, I think he'll be on that list in 10 years or so, because he seems like he's really Twitter savvy and has a pretty good personality. But other than that, I didn't really have too many that like popped in my mind. Like, some guys are active, but they're not really funny. Nick was the one that I thought was the funniest, because he's a guy that like he'll crack jokes. He'll make some like I mean, the guy made a ton of money throughout his NFL career, but he's still like pretty down to earth. Like, I remember he had a tweet not long ago about actually like betting on something, and he was so happy that he won like a $10 prop bet that paid out like $100. And I was like, man, like what? Like, really? I was like, he's an everyday man. And he's like, he's cool with that. I mean, he's a funny guy. He always had a good sense of humor in the locker room as well. And now he's kind of been able to parlay that onto the Twitter world. So he's probably, I would think, the must follow for Jet fans. But if any Jet fans have any other ideas for me, shoot them out. I mean, we're live streaming this one, so you can drop it in the YouTube comment section and all that, and kind of let us know. Because I mean, that was mine that first came to my mind, and I kind of ran through and looked at some other things. That was one that stuck. But maybe there's one I'm missing, which I would certainly be interested in.
All right, Jamal Adams. Let's move on to this, and it's such an interesting situation for me because we've kind of been through this before, Connor, and the fact that the Jets kind of have the full control here. 3 more seasons they can control Adams with his current contract. When you talk about the option and then the franchise tag, and just when you take into account also the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. It just seems like weird timing for this to get to the point where Adams is putting up a stink about this contract. And it seems like it's going to go back quickly to being a big deal and being a problem for the Jets.
Here's what's so when this whole thing came out, and Gary Myers, who's been an NFL, he's covered the NFL forever. I mean, the guy's a New York Times bestselling author. Wrote for the Daily News, was a beat down in Dallas for a bit. I mean, he's been around for a while, even did some work for us here at The Athletic for a while. And he was a huge help to me when we did work together here at The Athletic, both with putting stories together, ideas for stories. I mean, the Gary knows what he's doing. And so when he first reported that out there, was kind of the first update on the Jamal Adams contract talks that anyone has had or heard since Joe Douglas said back during the NFL Combine that he wanted Jamal Adams to be a Jet for life, and what he said during the NFL Draft, which was that his hope is that, he's going to handle the draft. He handled free agency. He's going to do undrafted free agency, and then he's going to re-up and kind of start talking a little bit there with Jamal again to kind of reignite conversations with him about a potential contract and a new contract. So this was like the first thing we've heard from that since then. After Gary reported that, I went out and I made my calls to the people that I know within the Jets, people that I know within close to Jamal, people that I know around the league, just to kind of try to get a feel of what this situation is. And what I came away with after talking to the people that I talked to and the people that I trust a lot is that the Jets have every intention of paying Jamal Adams. They want to make Jamal Adams a quote Jet for life. They want Jamal Adams to be with this team for the long term. They believe that he is this crazy difference maker on defense. They believe that he is a dominant force both on the field and off in the locker room. They love that he's a leader. And like one of the best quotes that I think Joe Douglas had on Jamal Adams, and I think he said it on ESPN radio. He didn't say it to us. He said it when he did a radio hit, was that he said something along the lines like, why, like, he's not trying to trade away Jamal. He wants to go find more Jamals, that his goal is to fill his team with Jamal Adams. And again, this goes back to like the whole thing where he wasn't on the trade block last year during the deadline. People called the Jets about Jamal Adams. The Jets said, look, if you want him, you're going to have to give us a ton of stuff, which was a first and 2 2s, which is an absurd haul for a safety. So nothing has changed from the Jets' stance in that they want to pay Jamal Adams. Their plan is to pay Jamal Adams. The thing is that they just can't pay Jamal Adams right now. And they can't pay him right now for a myriad of reasons. Again, their plan is to pay Jamal. They want to pay Jamal. They will make Jamal Adams one of the highest paid players, or one of the highest paid safety in the NFL, one of the highest paid players in the league. probably not the highest paid player in the Jets. I don't think he's getting $17-18 million a year from the Jets, but their plan is to pay him. They want to pay him, but they can't really do it right now. And that's why they kind of told Jamal Adams' side, look, they didn't even look, first of all, they didn't talk money. Like, there has been no conversation between the Jets and Jamal Adams about a financial figure. Like, this isn't Jamal wants $19 million a year. The Jets are willing to pay him $16 million a year. And there's a standoff between the two figures. This is all about when Jamal Adams wants to get paid, because he wants to be paid right now before the season. The Jets have told him, look, a contract extension is probably highly unlikely. It's not coming during the offseason. It is probably not coming before week 1. It's just not going to happen. The reason for this, again, is not because the Jets don't want to pay Jamal. It's that because right now there are so many holdups and so much unknown about giving Jamal Adams a contract extension. What I mean by that is this coronavirus thing, this COVID-19, is having a legitimate impact on the financial outlook of the NFL, right? Because if games are played, I'm under the full impression that there will be games in some way, shape, or form there will be games in some way, shape, or form this season for the NFL. Like, they will find a way to play games. Roger Goodell would bury himself alive before he allowed a year to go by without games to be played. Like, that is a fact. Like, he's going to have games this season. What the big question mark is, and that's honestly kind of confirmed right now with we saw, like, literally right before we started this podcast, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said pro sports teams can start opening up in New Jersey as long as the leagues follow a particular safety protocol. But he's basically allowing teams to practice, hold training camps, competition, things like that. So there will be games. The question is, will there be fans in the stands? And that's where it's all an opinion. In my opinion, I don't think there will be fans in the stands this year. Some people think there might be some after the first month. They might delay the season a month and then have fans in the stands. I mean, that's a whole other obstacle to hurdle. Now we got over one big one with the fact teams can now practice in the state of New Jersey. Now it's going to go on to, okay, well, are there fans in the stands? If there are not fans in the stands, you are going to have every NFL team lose roughly $100 million in revenue if there are no fans in the stands. If those teams lose $100 million in revenue, you will then have a league-wide revenue loss of $3.2 billion. If that were to happen, and Adam Schefter was the first one who put all these financial figures in place and kind of said, like, this is what you're looking at with the math. If they were to drop $3.2 billion in revenue, you're talking about a potential salary cap cut for next season, team salary cap cut of $70 to $80 million. Now, mind you, when we were talking about free agency and we were looking at the outlook of free agency moving forward, the new TV deals, all this stuff, the new collective bargaining agreement, the NFL was expecting the potential of a $40 million raise, $40 million up. Now, the last several years, it's kind of been like a $10 million jump, $12 million jump, 9, 10, 12, right around there. It's always been going up. They were expecting a huge hike of $40 million for a jump. A $70 million drop instead of a $40 million hike would put the Jets in a roughly $30 million hole for next year's offseason. Now, this is not a Jets problem. This would be a league-wide problem because of all the teams in the NFL, you would have 3. I think it's the Colts, the Chargers, and the Patriots that would sit above the salary cap with a $40 million or a $70 million drop. Now, in my opinion, the NFL would not allow that to happen. They're not going to have a $70 million drop in 1 year. What they would probably try to do is extend that over like something like 10 years, like kind of try to lessen the drop for a 10 years. So instead of say $70 million drop 1 year, you would have a $7 million drop this year, then a $7 million drop next year with the hope that the new TV deal and some new revenue that would come in would kind of lessen that sum and you could make up the 70 million. And the big $40 million raise wouldn't come for a bit, but you would have like a drop this year to then go up maybe 5 million next year, then go up 7 million, then kind of regulate it again with 10, 10, 10, something along those lines. The uncertainty of that situation, though, is what clouds this Jamal Adams situation. They cannot pay Jamal Adams right now. They cannot give Jamal Adams this massive long-term big money contract extension because they have no idea what the hell the future is going to look like thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is going to play a role in the NFL's revenue, which is going to have an impact on the team's salary cap. They can't give him $70 million, which would strap them financially moving forward when they don't know what the future cap is going to look like, if it's going to drop, raise, whatever. And again, this is not a Jets problem. it's a league-wide problem. It's one of the reasons why Deshaun Watson doesn't have his contract yet. Pat Mahomes doesn't have a contract yet. All of these other players that are through 5 years that want contract extensions, or through 4 years and want contract extensions, or like Jamal Adams are through 3 years and want contract extensions, do not have contract extensions yet. The Jets want to pay him. They can't pay him because of this current uncertainty. And again, the second level on top of all of this is that the Jets don't have to pay him because, as we've said 300 times on this podcast and written it just as much, they own the guy for 2 full years. They've got him under his rookie contract this year. They've got him under the 5th-year option next year. They can franchise tag him in 3 years, and they can franchise tag him a second year if Joe Douglas is feeling a little frisky in 2022 and keep him under contract then, because safeties don't make a lot of money. Now, do I think it gets to that point? No, I think the Jets will eventually give Jamal a contract extension when they kind of have an idea of what the future is going to look like. But what Jamal needs to realize is that he does not hold any cards in this. He does not have a strong hand. The Jets have all of the cards. They control this entire situation because, again, he is not under, like, the thing I compare it to is the situation with Yannick, the defensive end out there in Jacksonville, and that he's franchise tagged right now. So he is on the franchise tag. So because he's on the franchise tag, he can say, I'm not showing up unless you trade me, or I get a contract, I trade, I'm not showing up. And the Jacksonville Jaguars cannot fine him or anything like that because he's not under contract. They have the franchise tag out there, meaning that's the only deal that he can potentially sign. But if he doesn't sign that, the Jaguars both cannot fine him, and then Yannick obviously would not be paid. So, like, it's obviously a double-edged sword. You're not getting fined, but you're also not getting any money. Jamal Adams is under his rookie contract for this year and next year, meaning for every practice, every mandatory practice he misses, every game he misses, the Jets can fine him. And those fines are going to come out to a sum that is a hell of a lot more than the $3.5 million he's supposed to make this year. So at the end of the day, Jamal can say he wants a new contract, which he does. He can say he deserves a new contract, which he probably does, but he can't really do anything other than that, because if he holds out, the Jets are going to fine him. And if they keep fining him, he's going to lose a ton of money. So his only option is to play, and his only option is to start showing up when this is mandatory. And again, I think what everyone needs to realize here, again, and it's the big thing, I've repeated it like 7 times though, it's that the Jets do want to pay Jamal, and their plan is to pay Jamal. They have, the exact thing was told to me is they have no intention, and it has never been in the cards, to trade Jamal Adams. That was the case this entire offseason. That was the case when I talked to him when this Gary Myers report originally came out. That has not changed. Their whole thing is that we just can't pay Jamal Adams right now. And once they can, they probably will. But right now, they can't. And the hope is that Jamal Adams does realize that. But even if he doesn't, the Jets still hold all the cards, man. And there's nothing Jamal Adams can do.
Well, the one thing that surprises me too about this is just the optics of it. If you're Jamal Adams and you're his agent, I would just think that now's not the time, man. Like, look at Major League Baseball right now. They're going back and forth about the pay, and they're both sides are getting killed by the fan base on Twitter, everywhere, about the fact that, and these are baseball players who have already accepted a major pay cut, and they just don't want to accept more pay cut. And people are saying, just go out there and do it for the country, do it for whatever, pay, you're playing baseball, and all that sort of talk. And I haven't seen any of that yet against Jamal Adams, but I feel like it's eventually going to come where, come on, man. Like, you're going to make your full salary this season. We have other athletes who are taking pay cuts because of this pandemic. Like, shut up and play. Eventually that message is going to come.
Yeah, and it's another thing too, man. Is like, I mean, the unemployment rate in this country is plummeting. Yep. Like, we're all very, like, the three of us are very fortunate. Like, we're very fortunate to still be employed. Unemployed. We're very fortunate to still be employed. Financially, nothing has really changed for us. I'm super fortunate because Bree's a nurse, so she's still going to work every day, which is why a lot of people have asked me before, like, oh, how are things different with COVID-19? Nothing's really changed for me because I'm still working for The Athletic. I'm still getting paid, and I'm still doing my job. And my fiance is in the exact same boat. My best friend from high school is going to be my best man at my wedding, got furloughed, and he hasn't had a job in 3 months, and he's been trying to find some potential other work. No one is interviewing him. 2 of my other friends furloughed. My 2 sisters are both teachers. They have no idea what the future holds with the school. They got their salary and they got their money for this school year, but they have no idea what next year is going to hold. Like, they have no idea. So we're very fortunate. So many other people are not. Like, now it's almost like kind of common sense and optics and a little self-awareness that the time to be slamming your head and saying, hey, I want $17 million instead of $3.5 million. And basically, I mean, how much of what is the absurd percentage of the country? Isn't it like close to 35% of the country or something ridiculous like that is currently unemployed to now be asking for money? And I get it. He's a football player. He's entertainment. It can make the country happy and up the morale. But still, I mean, it's almost like now is not the time. Like this is like, no, like you want to like say this stuff like behind closed doors, like, hey, I really want but to kind of start going public and getting it out there and getting conversations going and trying to brew trade talk, I just don't think it's necessarily the right time, because there's so many people right now that are in such hardships and things like that. And the people that still have jobs, 3 of us, Jamal Adams, football players, you're very fortunate right now. And it's very easy to not get any money at all. And I just think it's probably not the right time. It's just not the right time for this.
Yeah, probably best to just quiet down and go amongst. If you don't want to do the voluntary stuff, just don't do it, but don't make a big stink about it. If trade offers come in and they're big, is there any chance, Connor, that he gets moved?
Sure. I mean, yeah, somebody wants to give him a 1 and 2 twos. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, why not? It's a safety. Like getting the day. Like Jamal Adams is a hell of a football player, and I've said this 100 times. He is an unbelievable player. He is a difference maker. I mean, you turn on the game against the Giants, and that's the game I always go back to, where the Jets do not win that game if Jamal Adams is not on the field. The guy was all over it. He is a difference maker. He still doesn't have an impact on a team like an all-pro left tackle would, or like an all-pro corner would, or like an all-pro pass rusher would. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, that's a fact of the matter. An all-pro quarterback. That's the difference. So if the Jets could potentially trade him and get a 1 and 2 twos to really expedite this rebuild, I think that they would take that deal, because they would be asinine not to take that deal. That's absurd. I mean, it's again, Jamal Adams has 2 career interceptions. That's one more than linebacker Terrell Basham. Like, I mean, like that's the difference. Like he makes a difference when he's on the field. The Jets are a better team with him than without. But the players they could potentially find with a 1 and 2 twos to really round out this rebuild, that collective unit as a team would be better than the one that they have right now with Jamal, assuming they hit on those draft picks. But again, I don't think any team's going to give up a 1 and 2 twos for a safety. The Dallas Cowboys aren't interested in trading for him right now. The Baltimore Ravens aren't interested in trading for him. No team in the NFL is going to be interested in trading for him right now, because you're not just trading for Jamal Adams and then getting him on his 4th year and then his 5th year. You have to trade him and then pay him, and he wants bank. So it's not like you can just get, like, some teams trade for players because you have them on their rookie deal for 2 years. You're like, sweet, this is a good financial investment. You're not getting that with Jamal. You got to trade him and then immediately pay him. And I don't see any team willing to do that, both for the compensation the Jets want and the current situation. Again, like I keep saying, this is not a Jets problem. This is an NFL league-wide, all 32 team problem, with the fact that they don't know what's going forward and they just can't afford to give out these massive contracts right now.
All right, on to the backup quarterback. And this was, when you look back on this, kind of hindsight, no brainer here. Joe Flacco to the Jets. And the Jets have had a kind of a black hole at backup quarterback the last couple of years. When Sam Darnold has missed time, it's just been a worse football team than it already was. But you talk about Joe Flacco coming on, a relationship obviously with Joe Douglas. He's from New Jersey. And now the Jets have that backup that if Sam Darnold does miss time, this is a guy that, hey, as much as he's been dogged in his career, this guy won a Super Bowl. I mean, he's been a starter for a long time. He's certainly capable of being an effective backup quarterback.
And he's probably one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I mean, Joe Flacco was considered kind of an average starter last year when the Broncos had him. Well, now if he's healthy and that neck's okay, you have him as your number 2 behind Darnold. And I think that what we've talked about this a ton. I mean, I know I wrote about it. Pretty sure we talked about it here, after the draft and before the draft, when we were saying like, oh, what could potentially be coming for the Jets? We said signing a veteran quarterback, like signing a guy behind him. And we specifically said Joe Flacco because of the connection to Joe Douglas. I mean, Joe was the guy that first went to the Baltimore Ravens as an area scout or as a scout and said, hey, is a kid down in Delaware. I know it sounds crazy, but he's a quarterback and we should really look into him. And he was the one who was pounding the table for the Ravens to draft Flacco. And then eventually the Ravens drafted Flacco, and the rest is history. Led him to a Super Bowl. You can say what he would, like you did, about up and down, still a Super Bowl MVP, still got that team a Super Bowl. The Jets would trade. I'm sure that there are some Jet fans that would give up their firstborn for a Super Bowl right now. So, I mean, it's like, that's something you give up. Like, you're fine with Joe Flacco as a quarterback because you got that Super Bowl. the Jets needed that behind Darnold, because more than anything else, when we first talked to Joe Douglas, I remember this vividly at his introductory press conference, he stressed the importance of a backup. And I remember thinking about it, I was like, you know what? If anyone knows the importance of a backup, it's Mr. Joe Douglas, because he's won 3 Super Bowls throughout his career. The first one with Baltimore was when Trent Dilfer came in. The third one with Philly was when Nick Foles came in. Those were veterans who had experience under their resume, not, all pro experience, but had experience playing in the NFL as veterans, who came in when the starter went down, filled in, kept the ship afloat, and in their case, led the teams to, in Dilfer's case, kept the ship afloat. In Foles' case, I mean, he put the team on his back and dominated against the Vikings and then dominated against the Patriots. And he's the reason why the Philadelphia Eagles both went to and then won that Super Bowl. So I think that he knew he could not go into this coming season with David Fales and James Morgan behind them. James Morgan is the player the Jets view as the long-term developmental, going to sit behind Sam Darnold. James Morgan will be Sam Darnold's backup next year. And then maybe in 3 years, they can flip him for a second or a third round pick because he looks good in the preseason or in limited action for Darnold. And some team wants to trade him to believing James Morgan be a franchise quarterback. That's how they view him. David Fales was someone they gave about $100,000 and $900,000 to, something like that, to just come in and be like, hey, you know the offense. So if we really don't find any quarterback, at least we know we've got you there who can help kind of both James and Sam. But the Jets needed someone both behind Darnold for that reason, because they simply did not have any veterans behind him, but also the fact there are legitimate injury concerns with Darnold right now. There are some question marks on this guy's durability. His first year, again, you can blame the protection, which is totally warranted. You can say, like, if he had better protection, didn't take so many hits, he's not getting hurt. Totally true. But that's kind of more like that's what you think. You don't know that yet. You don't know that until Darnold strung together 2 or 3 complete seasons. So year one, he deals with that leg injury, which cost him 3 games, I believe it was. The Jets had to go to Josh McCown, which didn't work because the team was terrible, but Josh McCown was at least an experienced veteran who could have kept a better team afloat if that was there. This past year, yes, Sam Darnold had the mono. That's totally flukish. That's not a sign he's injury prone. That's not a sign he's questionable. That's not a sign. That's totally fluky. But when he does get back in there, he then suffers the thumb injury on his left hand. If that thumb injury was suffered on his right hand, he's missing the rest of the season. That thumb injury required offseason surgery. That thumb injury was the reason Sam Darnold couldn't grip a football with his left hand to hand off. So the Jets could not hand off to the left unless Sam Darnold used both hands. If that thumb injury happened to happen to his right hand, again, the kid is out the entire season. So you now have year 1 as a rookie, leg injury. Year 2 as a second-year player, thumb injury. You're going into year 3 with a quarterback that has never played a complete season. Again, I'm not saying Sam Darnold is injury prone. I'm not saying this is a guy who's never going to play a complete season. I'm just saying it's something that you need to take into consideration. There's a possibility that there may be some durability concerns with Sam Darnold. And if there are, just be prepared. You hope there aren't. You think there aren't. You think these were just fluky injuries that protection will fix, but there's a chance it's not. So prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And that's what the Jets did by getting Joe Flacco. They wanted to go out there and get Andy Dalton. They didn't have a chance to do it. He took more money from the Dallas Cowboys, right? So, okay, Andy Dalton went back home to Dallas and he gets more money. So you still want to go find that veteran that you believe that if Sam Darnold has turf toe and misses 3 weeks, if Sam Darnold strains his shoulder and misses 2 weeks, if Sam Darnold dislocates a finger on his throwing and has to miss 1 game, you want to have a player that you believe you can insert as your backup quarterback, and that player can keep the team afloat. Because when Sam Darnold went down last year, the Jets sunk like a lead balloon, and they do not want that to happen again. And the thought with Joe Flacco is that he's a guy who's he's not an MVP candidate anymore. He's not going to be a 16-game starter and lead you to a Super Bowl, but he is somebody that can come in, step in, keep the team afloat. And while you won't get what you do with Sam Darnold, you will still get competence under center, and you can win with competence, and you can kind of gut out victories with competence. You couldn't do that when David Fales came in. You couldn't do that with Luke Falk. You couldn't really do that with Trevor Siemian either. So now you get a chance to do it with Joe Flacco. I think it was a very smart signing for the Jets. I think it was a brilliant signing for the Jets, and I think it was also an expected signing for the Jets.
0-6 when Darnold doesn't start for this team, and overall an 11-game losing streak back to Bryce Petty at San Francisco back in 2016.
It was a hell of a game. I have a story about that game. So at that time I was working for the Star Ledger, and no one ever gets upset in the press box. That was the one time I remember watching that game, because for a bit during that game, it looked like the Jets were going to lose to the 49ers, who I think at that point didn't have a win. I'm pretty sure that at that point in the season, the 49ers didn't have a win, or they had 1 win. And I remember watching that game in the press box. And it was the one time I've seen collectively every like reporter be like, God, just freaking win this game. Just find a way to win this game. And the whole reason for it was because I think we all knew that if Todd Bowles lost that game, he was going to lose his job. And the one thing that none of us wanted to do after that 2016 season, because that 2016 season as a reporter was freaking hell. That was when 2016, that's the year that Gino's saying he's antsy on the sideline. There's the drama with the Fitz holdout. There's Brandon Marshall and Sheldon Richardson wanting to kill each other. There was like just hell on hell. The Jets are supposed to be like, they're a hot pick for the playoffs and a potential like run for the Super Bowl. And now they're like 2-8 at this point. Like it was just like the season from reporting hell of stress. So the last thing all of us wanted to do was cover a coaching search at the end of it. Cause covering a coaching search as a reporter is just not fun. And so we're all sitting there in the press box, realizing that if the Jets lose this game, we're all covering a freaking coaching search. So we're like, God, please Petty do it. Please Petty do it. Please Petty do it. And I remember he made some absurd throw off like his back foot when he was scrambling around, which when we talked to him about it the next day on like Wednesday, he compared it. Like he said, it was like, oh, it was kind of like a little like Brett Favre or so. It was something absurd like that. And I think he found Robbie Anderson at like midfield, and then Bilal Powell ended up scoring. I think it was to tie the game, and then Bilal Powell scored a game-winning touchdown in overtime. But man, I remember that game very, very vividly, just because all of us were like, God, please just win this game. So I had an incredible burrito in San Francisco that week. That was the other.
Wow,
big
you
positive,
buried the lead there.
Yeah, the burrito. We went to like the Mission District. I think Daryl Slater, who now he covers the NFL for the Ledger, he used to be their Jets beat writer. We worked together for 3 years. One of my close friends in the field. He's like a foodie, and he's what I love about traveling on the road with him. He's a dude who always finds like the hidden places to go to. And so he found this awesome burrito place in the Mission District of San Francisco, where it's like a hole in the wall. You walk through, it's like an assembly line. But goddamn, that burrito was freaking incredible. Like just unbelievable. I'm like drooling now thinking of it.
All right, we have some questions, so let's move on to that stuff. Marissa, a lot of them on there, but let's take, I guess, the best ones, the ones that pass the test here.
Yeah, well, I'll rapid fire these two to try to get in a few more. I won't be so long-winded like I always am.
It's okay. So we talked about Governor Murphy's announcement earlier. Taylor wants to know, what do you think the Jets' plan will be for reopening the facility now that they're allowed to? How soon should we expect OTAs, minicamp, etc.?
I don't think OTAs are not happening. I think that's confirmed. Minicamp might happen in some capacity. I think the big thing to focus on right now is training camp. I think that's the big thing that you need to focus on, and when training camp's going to begin, because like it's going to stink for them not having OTAs, minicamp. It's going to certainly hurt teams like the Jets that have all those new offensive linemen in place. But you just need to focus on training camp, because if training camp can start on time in some capacity that is normalcy, like having all of the players there, all of the coaches, and contact drills, that's when you can start thinking about the regular season actually starting on time. So I think the big thing to realize is that the Jets are going to do this like every other team. They're going to take it slow. They're going to take it a phase-by-phase approach. So implement the first phase, which could be players just working out. Then the second phase, which is coaches are involved. Then all of a sudden this, and now you're getting a little bit of on-field stuff, and then you're testing this, whatever. The big thing, just ignore all that. The big thing is to focus on if they're going to start training camp, which they will do. They are going to have a training camp per this thing for Murphy. The big thing, though, is that training camp going to start on time? Because if it does, that means the season will likely start on time.
It was going to be interesting because Cuomo over the weekend had said New York was open. So if New Jersey hadn't opened, it would have been interesting to see if the Giants or Jets might have moved to Long Island.
Following his coattails a little bit.
Wait, we can't lose.
Following his coattails a little bit there.
We can't lose training camp. Yeah. All right, Marissa, go ahead.
All right. Next one is from loyal listener Taslim. He said, is there any truth to the Juju rumors a few weeks ago about the Steelers not re-signing him? And if so, what do you think the chances are the Jets sign him, considering his relationship with Sam? And going along with that, are there any veteran wide receivers you see potential training camp casualties that the Jets might be interested? That one is from T.
Yeah, I haven't gone into the casualties yet. I can't say anything like that. I did see like we actually reported that The Athletic was the one who reported that Juju Smith-Schuster and the Steelers might not want to re-sign him. I think that would surprise the hell out of me, because Juju is a dominant player when he's healthy on the field. He is a great locker room guy. He's somebody that has good chemistry with Ben Roethlisberger as long as Roethlisberger's there, where it does not make any sense why you let somebody like that go. Like that's just like, look, teams do things that don't make sense all the time. So I do not believe that they're not going to re-sign him. It's just one of those things where it's like, you question why. Like, why would you not bring this dude back? Like, he's a dominant football player who is not a diva. Like he's not like it's not even like an Odell Beckham where you have like the dominance on the field, but you got to deal with the circus off it. When have you heard a bad headline from Juju ever? Like it just doesn't happen. So I would be very surprised if they don't. If he does hit free agency though, absolutely, you go get that guy because he doesn't have the injury or doesn't show up in big game concerns like Amari Cooper. Again, no worries about being a diva. Like he's a productive guy when healthy. He is somebody absolutely that if the Jets, if he's out there and it's the possibility the Jets can go out and sign him, I think they absolutely will go out there and try and get that guy. In the back of my head, though, it's just kind of one of the things where it's like you don't believe it. Like it's like you hear that and you're like, why would you let him go? Now, granted, when you hear about a team firing their general manager 2 weeks after the draft, after they let him pick the head coach, sign $120 million of free agency, run an entire draft, you don't believe that one either. But sometimes crazy stuff happens.
All right. This is the time of the podcast where we do our Logan Ryan and Clowney update. Go.
Yeah. All right. So Jadeveon Clowney, again, I've heard the same thing about Clowney as I keep hearing is that there's something wrong with his knee. Is that's probably why he's not signed right now, is that his knee is not in great shape. Teams aren't willing to give him a ton of guaranteed money when they don't know what kind of a player he's going to be. So I just don't think that's totally realistic unless his price drops so much that the risk or the reward outweighs the risk. Right now, the risk still outweighs the reward, even though it's still he dropped his price from 20 million. Dude still wants 16, 17 million. That's still way too much for somebody that you don't know. And you can't right now have your doctors look at him. That's the big thing. Your doctors need to look at him. And another big thing right here is that the Seattle Seahawks, who need help on the defensive line, have agreed to let him go. Like that's kind of a big red flag there. Second thing about Logan Ryan, again, it's a money thing. It's that the Jets and Joe Douglas are interested in him. They would like to have Logan Ryan on their defense. They think Logan Ryan would be a benefit to their defense. But as we have seen with every single contract given out by Joe Douglas right now, he has a price that he is willing to pay players. He has a price that he is not willing to pay players. And that price he's not willing to pay players is like a penny more than what he's willing to pay them. So it's like he's a stickler for it. It's why he was able to get Brian Poole back at so cheap, why he was able to get Jordan Jenkins back so cheap, and why the Jets contracts moving forward are not going to put them in financial turmoil like Muhammad Wilkerson, Darrelle Revis, Tremaine Johnson. So the Jets are interested in Logan Ryan, but they're interested in him at their price. Their price is not $10 million per year, which is what Logan Ryan wants right now. The Jets are not willing to pay that, and it's understandable as to why. When you look at his stats from last season, you see it's like 113 tackles. I think it's 4.5 sacks and 5 interceptions, right? You look at that, you're like, that's a freaking hell of a corner. Go get that guy. Give him $30 million a year. When you actually go in and look at the legitimate breakdown of his stats, that's the first time he's intercepted a pass in 2 years. That's a fact. He had not had an interception since 2016 before his 5 this year. He also gave up something like 5 or 6 touchdowns passing, according to Pro Football Focus. Quarterbacks had like a 92 quarterback rating when targeting him, and that's with those 5 interceptions. So I just don't, he's not a player that's worth $10 million. Is he a good locker room addition? Sure. Would he be better than what the Jets have now? Yes. And then that's why the Jets have interested in him, but they have interest in him at their price, and they're not willing to pay more. And until those prices line up, they're not going to sign him.
One more, Marissa?
Yes, one more. This is a good one. This is from Andrew. If you had to pick one guy on the Jets to go on the course for a round of 18, who would it be?
Oh, Jordan Jenkins. No doubt Jordan Jenkins. Jordan Jenkins is a big golfer. And like not only is Jordan Jenkins a big golfer, if you ever seen him, his arms are like longer than my body. Like the guy's got the longest arms of anyone I've ever seen. And from what I understand, like talking to him a little bit, I want to talk to him more about it now in the locker room. He drives it like 400 yards. It's just, I don't think he has too much control, but yeah, he would be one I would like to go out there and see play and play with, just for the simple fact that I want to see him drive that far. I know we were just talking about how awesome it is to read greens and all that. I still want to see somebody hit a bomb like 400, and I think Jordan can do it. I mean, that guy's pretty good. He's a long ball hitter, no doubt.
All right, good stuff. So he's a long ball hitter though. One more thing on that follow-up. If you want to feel good about your golf game, who's the guy in the Jets that's really going to hack up the course that you'd want to play with?
Someone that's never played before.
You know what? I've seen some. I might catch some heat for this one. I've seen some videos on Facebook or on videos on Instagram and stuff of Sam Darnold playing golf. I don't think, for a dude who grew up in sunny SoCal, I thought his swing would look a little bit better. His swing does not look as fine-tuned as I would expect. So I think Sam's somebody that I would like to see out there. I know I saw he and Josh Allen are really close. So they've gone golfing a bunch. Josh Allen is a good swing. Like Josh Allen is a good golf swing. Sam was one that I watched. I was like, I don't don't know. I don't know if he looks like somebody who I might be able to keep in line with. Tim, I didn't actually tell you this. So we, for those of you that listen to the podcast regularly, like I love golfing, but I also just started golfing. So I've been golfing for about a year. So my scores are usually in the 90s, like mid to low 90s when I'm really on. If I'm off, they'll be high 90s. And if I'm really off, then they can creep into the 100. But I'm fine. You have a couple, 1 or 2 bad holes, it totally ruins the score. I played my local course the other day with a good friend of mine, and I was as on as I've ever been. Like, it was one of those where like you're just rocking and rolling. It was like the front was like a 40, 44, something like that, or like it was a good front. I had like three pars. Second round, like we start the back 9 and we start going, and everything I'm hitting is bogey, which for me, I have never broken 90 before. So I'm like, as I'm starting to add these up in my head, I'm like, you know what? I was like, I'm kind of walking on here with like a chance to break 90 for the first time. Like I could be at like an 87, 88. Like this is actually looking pretty good. So we're going through. And for whatever reason, this entire round, I was like scrambling better than I've ever had. So like I had 3 pars on par 3s where I didn't hit the green. So I was like off, but for some reason I learned how to chip. I learned how to chip this round, and it would go right up, put it right in for like the 1 putt, and it was good. Just randomly learned how to chip. So like this whole thing is happening the front 9, happening on the back 9. So I walk on to 18. And my buddy goes, like, I had one double, like I hit like a double bogey on one of the holes on the back 9 where I had to take a penalty because I shot it out of bounds. And I was like, oh man, like this sucks. I was like, but my buddy, as we're walking, he goes, dude, he goes, you hit a par here and you're going to shoot like an 88. He goes, you're going to like, which is a new career best. So I'm like, oh, I was like, yeah, I'm the least clutch person in the world. So as soon as there's a little bit of pressure, I totally crumble. So I step up and my drive, I crush. Like on this, and it's a long par 4. It's like a 420, 430 par 4. So I crush it with like a little bit, don't know how I did it, put a little bit of a fade on it, like goes right, like just on the cusp, but like it's off the rough, just inside, like cugs the tree line. Great. I was like, all right, we're good. Second shot hit a 7 iron, didn't hit the green, but I was like just off like enough. And in like the sitting up in like tall grass. So it's like basically on a little tee, the easiest thing in the world to chip. You just take
That's
a
when
putting
you need
stroke.
Phil. You need a lesson from Phil at that moment.
Dude, I'm walking up to him like, holy cow, I'm going to have a chance. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I've got a chance. So I'm like, all right, all I have to do is just chip it. It's going to drop up, drop there. And I can have like a chance to 1 putt for a par. And if nothing else, then at least I can just hit 90 and I won't have broken 90, but I'll have 90. We'll be good. So I set up to, I've been chipping better than I have all day. Like I haven't missed a freaking chip. Everything's been on the green. Take like 3 practice ones. Dude, I hit this thing. It went 2 yards. I chunked the hell out of it. Went 2 yards. And my buddy goes, there's the Connor we know and love. I was like, you ass, man. Like, oh, I was so close. And so, of course, like now the second chip I put it way too far. 2 putt, I hit a double bogey on the next. I still shot like my best score is like a 91 or a 92, but I walked on to 18 with a chance at an 88, and I just imploded on a chip. Which is why when I saw Brady do that, when I saw Brady do it on the match and he chunked his chip, I was like, yeah, that's not just me. Not just me. Never felt more relatable to Brady in my life. Never.
Well, we have to end on this, Connor. Comment from Andrew. Give me the 10-part documentary about Connor's golf career.
Oh, you know what? I'll give you the title of it. Because my father-in-law actually said it gave me the best quote ever. He goes, I'm not an expert, but I've got no problem talking. That's going to be the title of it. I don't know all 10 of them, but that's going to be the title of it. That'll be.
I feel like we're still on the first night, episodes 1 and 2 here, as you try to get your score under 90. But,
I'm trying. This is a course, man. That's my course. I live in Princeton, so it's the Princeton Country Club. It's an easier course. Like it's not super super hard, but it's still like I was so pissed. Like the whole front, like it was kind of like a weird front with a couple of doubles, but the 3 pars brought the score down big time. And they were pars that were like I was off the green but just chipping up. And the back was just consistent bogeys. And to walk onto the back with like a chance to do it and to hit the drive's the biggest issue. Cause like if I slice the drive, it's like, all right, now you're punching, best you can do is bogey. But like to hit the perfect draw, then a decent second shot and to chunk a chip like 2 yards. Andy Vasquez, who covers the Jets for the record, I told him about it. And he goes, don't worry, Connor. I'm sure it won't take you months and months and months to have the same opportunity. Like, those are my friends. Those are my friends, the people I love the most.
I have always said personally, as a fellow terrible golfer, that 90 is kind of the golden number. Just because if you figure if you're playing a par 72, that's a bogey round where you're bogeying every hole, and that just feels good. Like you're respectable. It doesn't sound respectable, I think, for people that don't golf. Like 90, that's awful. But for those of us who are bad golfers, to think, oh, okay, I was one over every single hole. Heck yeah.
No, it's not bad.
Give me that.
And you just need one par, and then say you need one par in bogeys, and you're at an 89. And once once you get 89, by the way, then you can say you golf in the 80s. That's like, I'm in the 80s. Like when you go out and golf, what do you shoot? 80s.
80s.
That's when I'm golf. 80s.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
All right.
Like once a year on a par 3.
Before we go, we want to tell you about a new podcast we have here at The Athletic. You're definitely going to want to check it out. The Comeback, COVID-19 and the Return of Sports. Seth Davis examining the latest developments of the return of professional sports during COVID-19. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey joined the show on Monday to discuss his conference. It's opening up to campus and workouts and the major benchmarks that need to be met before sports can return to college campuses in the fall. So check out The Comeback right here at The Athletic. And if you want to save 40% off a subscription to The Athletic, go to theathletic.com/the Can't Wait podcast for 40% off a 1-year subscription. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us on YouTube or wherever you are, and tune in again next time.